So, I recently did a poll asking you guys what you think my next video should be, and you all said it should be ranking every modern Doctor Who series, so that's what I'm here to do today. Simple concept, no explanation needed, let's get straight into it. So, obviously we're going to start with Series 1, and I'm going to put that straight into the A tier. I think this series deserves a lot of credit just on the basis that it revived Doctor Who, and very successfully revived Doctor Who at that. The way that the show introduces, or I suppose reintroduces, elements such as, the Doctor and the TARDIS in that first episode is fantastic, if you'll excuse the pun. Seeing this world from a working class girl's perspective was a really genius way of weaning the audience into this universe, and surrounding the iconography of this series, surrounding all of that with mystery, was such a great way to take it, because it adds a whimsy and a magic to something as simple as a police box. And it also adds a real menace to something like the Daleks, who were a public joke kind of at that point, but when you introduce the elements of, the Time War and slowly learning about that as the series progresses, it makes you fear such a goofy looking thing. I say that, I think the Daleks look awesome, but anyway. And of course it helps that a singular Dalek was treated with so much respect and power in that first episode with it in Dalek. And then, you see how much power that is. Wait till you see an army of them in Parting of the Ways. I think that Nine and Rose are a great Doctor and companion duo. I do slightly dislike Rose, although more of my reasoning for that comes from Series 2. I do think she's a bit mean towards Mickey. It's fine. She's 19. I get she's a bit of a complex character. I can forgive it a lot more in this series because there is conflict that comes from these things too. Especially, when the Doctor is wrong and Rose points that out. I just think there's such a great dynamic there where these two are constantly butting heads with each other, but there's a great love and care for each other too. And there's just such great character development running through the series because of that. But yeah, I think the only thing bringing this series down for me is like the Slitheen, and just kind of how 7 out of 10 the first few episodes are. I think once you get to Dalek, the whole series is insanely strong, 8 out of 10s and above from that point, except for Boomtown.
You want moves, Rose? I'll give you moves.
And yes, I am including the long game in that, because my first hot take of the video is that I really like the long game. I think it's overhated. I think it's fun. I think the political satire is really cool. I couldn't think of a word to say then. I think the Jagrafess is a neat design. I think it gets overhated. Simon Pegg is a great guest star.
No, something's wrong. I can taste it.
And the sort of ramifications that come for the Doctor at the end of the series is just you don't really get that very often with Doctor Who. He goes in, does his thing and leaves, so it's nice that, it's seeding events to come. Okay, on to Series 2, which I'm going to put in the C tier. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of good things about this series. I think there's a really strong aesthetic to the whole thing. I mean, this season is just incredibly nostalgic to me. I remember owning this whole series on DVD as a kid and just religiously watching it every day. I'd take the DVDs on long car trips so I could watch it on... You ever have one of those little DVD players that you'd put into the car? Oh, I do miss those days. And I think there are strong episodes such as School Reunion, Girl in the Fireplace, especially The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, which is one of the best two-parters to come out of the show. And an argument can be made that the finale is really good. I personally think it is Russell's weakest finale from his first era, although, I know I'm treading on mighty thin ice right now. But there's also just a real mixed bag element to this season. It's just for every Girl in the Fireplace, you get New Earth. For every School Reunion, you get The Idiot's Lantern. For every Satan Pit, you get Fear Her, which is just an abomination of television. I think it's the first case where it's really hard to say that this is a good season, because like a good substantial amount of it is quite weak to painful to watch. I also think that Ten and Rose don't help matters, because their whole cutesy shtick gets annoying really fast. I do not like this TARDIS team. Their sort of lack of conflict and just horrendously in-your-face romance just like detracts from everything that made Nine and Rose work in the previous series. And honestly, I think this just irritating cutesy act detracts from David Tennant's performance. He enters the Christmas Invasion so confident and fresh and striking, and then, you know, it's kind of all of this, you know, look how happy we are, me and Rose. And it drags the series down, because unlike something like Series 10, which obviously we'll touch on later, but in Series 10, you know, you might have a weak episode, but the cast really carry you through. Whereas in this series, if you have a strong episode, the cast is actively taking away from it. And as for a hot take for this series, I really like the Cybermen two-parter. I think it's great. It's got such a powerful, striking aesthetic and tone. I love the colours. I love the sound of the Cybermen, the look of the Cybermen, controversially. And I just adore that sequence in the second part where the Doctor is just arguing humanity with an upgraded John Lumic. I think that's great and sums up the Cybermen completely. On to Series 3, and I'm going to put that straight in the S tier. I do not care. I do not care. Maybe controversially, I don't love, but I like every episode in this series. This is the first series where I don't think there is necessarily a weak link. If I had to choose one, it would definitely be the Shakespeare Code. I think that's like insanely middling. Funnily enough, it was one of my favourite episodes as a kid, but as I've grown up, it's really sitting there in the middle, and some parts of it haven't aged well. But no, I really, really like this series. I think that it's got Russell's strongest opening episode, even stronger than Rose. I think the finale gets a lot of flack. I think Utopia is like a borderline perfect episode of Doctor Who. Sound of Drums is one of my most rewatched episodes. I just love that it's a pilot to Years and Years, a show that Russell T Davies would go on to make years down the line. And I think the Deus Ex Machina in Last of the Time Lords is definitely the most excusable. It didn't have to cause Space Jesus, but do you know what? It's Doctor Who. It does silly shit sometimes. And I think generally the story arc that leads into the finale is the strongest that Russell's done. When you get things like the Chameleon Arch and Martha's family interacting with these spooky FBI-like agents, and you've got all these Vote Saxon posters all over the modern day. And fun fact, I think the first mention of Harold Saxon is actually in Love and Monsters. Peter Kay's reading that newspaper, and Harold Saxon's name's there. Obviously, I love Martha. I don't know how you can't love Martha. She's a great addition to the show, and while her romantic interest in the Doctor does get a bit grating, and I think especially the Doctor's attitude towards Martha, I wish he wasn't as dismissive and just like as much of an arsehole in this series, but he is far less annoying than I find him in Series 2, and I think his performance really starts to shine, especially when you look at like Gridlock, or you watch the Human Nature and Family of Blood two-parter where he's playing a completely different character. So yeah, I really love Series 3. I think it's really strong. For a hot take, I also really like the Dalek two-parter, The Lazarus Experiment and 42. I think that's a criminally underrated run of episodes. Lazarus and 42 were just like fun runarounds. It's kind of if you want some light fluffy Doctor Who where there's a lot of running down corridors, techno babble, and you know, some explosions here and there. Like that's Doctor Who all over. It's good fun. And I think the Dalek two-parter is the most interesting the Daleks have been in the revival. So, you know, since 2007. I love the way that Helen Rayner plays with the Dalek imperative and their ideology. What would happen if you sort of perverted that or flipped it around, and the Daleks stuck in their ways attitude is what leads to their extinction or near extinction. I just think it's great. I think it's so overlooked. Moving on to Series 4, which obviously is going in the S tier. You know it's good. And I'm going to include the specials as well, because I think it's unfair to pit 4 episodes against 13 or whatever. It's just, so I mean, even with the specials, I don't think it detracts from the overall quality. I know Planet of the Dead is very weak, as I think is the next Doctor, but The Waters of Mars and The End of Time are just classics for a reason. I mean, The Waters of Mars especially, top 10 episodes for me, surely it's in there. Obviously, you can't talk about this series without mentioning the finale, which was essentially just the Avengers before the Avengers, right? It masterfully combines all 3 shows that were running at the same time, Sarah Jane, Doctor Who and Torchwood, into this crossover of insane proportions and scale, and it's just how it was written so neatly is beyond me. There's such a frantic pace to that whole finale. There's so much going on. There's so many characters, and yet everything feels paid off. It's wonderful. That was Golden Age telly right there. It just was. I think it has been damaged slightly by the 2023 specials, with Donna's fate, because, it balanced the scales of the Deus Ex Machina that admittedly happens at the end. But a few minor things aside, this is a great series. Ten and Donna are arguably the best TARDIS team. Donna is such a great character. Catherine Tate brings such a fabulous performance, especially coming off the back of The Runaway Bride, where no one really liked Donna, and now she's in the top ranks of companions. And yeah, Tennant is easily operating at his best throughout this whole series, and specials included. This is the definitive Doctor performance for me. So yeah, love Series 4. As for my hot take, I really like the Sontaran 2-parter. I think it's a fun story. Yeah, I don't know, great series. Moving on to Series 5. This has got to be one of the most consistent seasons of the show. Most episodes here are at least good. There are a few weak links.
People are dying up there. People are dying. 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 People are dying.
But you can kind of overlook them because Eleven and Amy are such great characters in this season and really carry everything through, especially with their really unique dynamic that's just so Doctor Who.
Funny.
I think the sort of magical fairy tale feel of the whole season is really refreshing too. While each of Russell T Davies' seasons were very distinct and they had their own identity, Series 5 really kicks it up a notch and just brings this whole new look and style to Doctor Who that proved it could continue without David Tennant, as did Matt Smith, who just oozes confidence, oozes charisma, and really carries the weight of 900 years of space-time travel, right? His eyes show so much wisdom and kindness and sorrow and regret, especially when you've got these moments like the cliffhanger of the Pandorica opens, all of Vincent and the Doctor, which is just a masterpiece of television. Even Victory of the Daleks, and his dynamic with the Daleks, brilliant. Even The Beast Below, which this is my big hot take for this season. I like The Beast Below a lot. I really do. There's just such a great moral test for the Doctor in that story, and Matt plays it brilliantly. I also think this may be the best series arc. I think the way that the crack in time is included in most of these episodes, and how that has ramifications for the wider story. The clerks getting erased from time, Rory dying halfway through the series, what happened to Amy's parents, why can't people remember these things that happened on Earth, giant Cyber King in Victorian London, what happened to that? Why can't Amy remember the Daleks? I think it's fantastic, definitely up there in the best of the series arcs. And you can't mention Series 5 without the 11th Hour. Best post-regen story of all time, and yes, I've seen Spearhead from Space. And the series rounds off with A Christmas Carol, which is the best Christmas episode. Fabulous series, straight in S tier. Let's go. As for Series 6, I think this is a series with some really strong episodes. I think it's also a series with some really weak episodes. I think this is the first time that Doctor Who really struggled to find its identity. I don't think it knows how it wants to feel or look at times. When you're looking at like the first half of the series and you've got the Impossible and Day of the Moon and the Doctor's wife, like they all fit together. Then you've got the Curse of the Black Spot, and then you've got the Rebel Flash two-parter, which, hot take, I really like them episodes. I do love this sort of blend of sci-fi and gothic horror that the episodes go for. But I will say it is really out of place, and I think that a lot of episodes struggle from that. You know, Let's Kill Hitler is the same. What the hell is this tonal imbalance? You know, even a series like Series 4, which is quite a dark and serious one, there are some fun or lighter episodes in there. Unicorn and the Wasp, Partners in Crime, the Doctor's Daughter, you know, even the Sontaran ones, they are breezier stories, but they still feel like part of Series 4, whereas I can't say that for a lot of Series 6 episodes. I think I'm also getting a bit tired of the puns at this point. I don't think Amy and Rory are as strong as they were in Series 5. I think their story was largely actually resolved by the end of Series 5. I think there was some cool things that were done with them. I don't know. They're not the strongest companions in my mind. I don't like them as much as most people. I think the God Complex would have been a great way for them to go, and then they still stuck around. I can feel that Moffat doesn't know what to do with them anymore, which is fair enough. You know, he was very busy at the time. He had a lot of projects on the go. I don't blame him entirely for how Series 6 turned out. I just think, you know, Moffat's really starting to struggle at this time, and the show is losing itself a bit. I will say that I really like the River Song stuff. I think some reveals about her are a little bit anticlimactic, and some are great. Alex Kingston is always killing it. I'm just going to take the time to say I love River. I think she's great. I know that she sometimes borders on being an abusive partner. I don't like that. That's not feminism, Moffat. But I love her charisma. I love her confidence. I love her character and the tragedy behind her character too. I think it's brilliant. And I understand that it turns some people away from the show, but I really like it. Also, fuck closing time. So I'm gonna put this in B tier. It's not the best, but it's far from the worst. Okay, Series 7, I think I'm also going to put this in C tier. There are episodes that I actually do quite like in this series. Like, substantially, actually. I think I maybe like more episodes than I dislike. But I think I was complaining about Series 6 and sort of losing identity. And I think Series 7 has fully just lost it. This gets referred to as sort of like the blockbuster season. And you can really see why. It feels like a lot of the episode titles were made, and then the episodes were written around them, and they didn't really strike a tone for the whole thing. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, Asylum of the Daleks sounds cool. The Bells of St. John sounds cool. Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. It's like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Angels Take Manhattan. It's like the Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah, we get it. But there's no remit to this season. There's no state of intent. It's messy, and again, it has no identity. And the main place you see that is with 11 and Clara, because the 11th Doctor is now just a caricature, a husk of his former self. Whereas in Series 5, he could be quirky and silly and have these funny moments, you know, Jammy Dodger sticking his tongue out in the mirror. But he was also really serious, and he could be stern and wise and really carry the weight of the character. Whereas in this series, he's just dumb. He's just silly and a borderline sex pest. I don't know. Moffat's really good at understanding the Doctor when it counts, but not for the most of this season. And obviously, you know, Clara, I have no words. She's just not a character. She came close in The Rings of Akaten, which I think may be the best episode of this season. Maybe Town Called Mercy. But I think Clara just kept fluctuating in and out of being a character this whole series, and it's really annoying to see. But yeah, I will say there are episodes I like, but there are also episodes that I just hate with a passion. Asylum of the Daleks, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, Hyde, The Crimson Horror. And also, yeah, the whole first half with the puns, I'm not even going to touch on that. It's just, what are you doing, man? But obviously, this season does have a saving grace with the 50th, and The Time of the Doctor, which I think is a very fitting end for 11. I think it's better than it gets credit for. So, you know, there are ups and downs. I can't call it a bad season like some people do. But it is definitely, I think, the weakest season up to this point. And as for a hot take, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I enjoyed Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS. It's dumb fun. Like I said, it's running around corridors, techno-babble, spooky monsters. I don't know. I think it's cool. I know it's not perfect. I know. But I enjoy it. Next up is Series 8. And I'm going to put that hesitantly in the B tier. This could potentially creep into C. I don't think it's as mixed bag as Series 2, and the characterization is so much stronger than in Series 2 and in Series 7. Clara gets made into an actual person, which is great, and while I don't actually like Clara as a person, I think she's a really well-written character from here on out. I do really like the idea of having this companion that wants to, you know, be the Doctor and be on equal footing with him. And you see her turn more and more into the Doctor. You see her get more reckless, more adventurous. I think that's a great area to take Clara's character. And, you know, you can see so much of it starting in Series 8. You get Into the Dalek, where Clara sort of reminds the Doctor to be the Doctor. You get Kill the Moon, where she's forced into this position of making the decisions. In the Forest of the Night, as fucking awful as it is,
Why don't you just die?
she's leading this group of people. Sorry if you can, like, hear cars, by the way. This is usually a really quiet road. I don't know what's going on. I think the 12th Doctor is great as well. Capaldi absolutely kills it. And I think it's refreshing to have a more morally ambiguous Doctor. Someone who's not youthful and running around and being all, you know, Mr. Nice Guy all the time, except for when he's not. But I don't know. I just love Capaldi in this role. I love him in this season. And I love the arc that he goes on as well. I know some people find it messy, but I find it very coherent. I don't know. I think there are also some absolute bangers in this season. Some of the strongest, maybe in the whole show. Deep Breath, Into the Dalek, I think is an underrated gem. And I mean, Listen, experimental masterpiece. Okay, I fucking love Listen. I love Flatline. There are bangers in here. It just gets dragged down by episodes like The Caretaker or In the Forest of the Night or my big hot take for this one, Death in Heaven. I love Dark Water. I think that's such a strong episode, and I think Death in Heaven just ruins everything that it was trying to say, which is unfortunate. Series 9. I'm going to put it in the A tier very comfortably. I've had a lot of time to think about this. I know a lot of people will definitely disagree, but I really like Series 9. I like its structure. I like that it's all, you know, more or less two-parters. I think that's something that the show desperately needed at this time. You look at Series 7 and how underdeveloped some of those stories were, and you just think, yeah, we needed some more time on some of these stories, and Series 9 really delivers on that. You've got the absolutely fantastic story Under the Lake, which uses the two-part formula maybe better than any other two-parter. You've got the political thriller in the Zygon two-parter that's just masterful. And you've got this really interesting thing in the middle where it's not quite a two-parter, but you see the tidal wave that the Doctor causes by making someone immortal. And then you go back and visit how that's affected her and how that's changed her life. I don't think they're the greatest stories ever, but I think they have so much potential and so much thematic and narrative richness that I can be very forgiving to them for what they're trying to do. I think the only episode that I really have a disdain for is The Witch's Familiar.
Got your ass.
I actually quite like The Magician's Apprentice and how it's all set up. I think the Skaro cliffhanger is brilliant. The idea of the whole story, you know, the Doctor going back and leaving a child, Davros, alone and afraid on a battlefield, I think that's great. I just don't like that the Daleks get defeated by shit. And I don't like what Moffat does with their lore. Like, they're not Cybermen. They don't have their emotions channeled by the suit. They're just fucking angry. They just want to kill people. The tanks didn't kill the Allies. The Nazis did. But yeah, I love the direction that 12 and Clara go down this season. I really like where Capaldi's character is going. And as I said before, Clara's arc is just genuinely really interesting. Though I don't like Hellbent necessarily, because, you know, I don't like how they waste Gallifrey. I don't like some of the more egregious, out-of-character moments for the 12th Doctor. I can see what Moffat's trying to do, and I at least respect him for that. I respect what he's doing with Clara and the Doctor. I still think that Heaven Sent absolutely wipes the floor with it, though. And as for my hot take, Sleep No More is good, and you guys just, need to stop being so mean to it. The trend is literally becoming that I like an episode where the characters run down corridors and there's a fun little sci-fi twist in there. But, yeah, it's Doctor Who. I don't know. I like the sleep dust creatures. I think it's a great bedtime monster for children. You know, you better go to sleep on time, otherwise, you know, monsters are going to grow out of your eyes and eat you. That's just so Doctor Who. I don't understand why people are so against that. I think it's also just an inoffensive episode. I really don't understand why people hate it so much. I don't know. On to Series 10, which is one of my personal favourites and is going straight in the S tier. 12 Bill and Nardole, best TARDIS team, don't even care. Ask me another day, I'll say it's 10 and Donna. But today, I'm saying right this minute, 12 Bill and Nardole, best TARDIS team. I love them with all my heart, even when Missy gets thrown in there. Brilliant, amazing. This cast is Doctor Who to me. I also think this is maybe the most consistent run of episodes since Series 5. People may disagree with that, but the pilot through to Extremis is insane. The pilot and Smile, very fun run-around episodes. Thin Ice, Knock Knock, Oxygen. 3 back-to-back, heavy, dark episodes that are not just Doctor Who at its best, but science fiction at its best. And then Extremis is wow. I love that Moffat just decided to do one really weird, out-of-place experimental episode for each of the Capaldi seasons. And they're all some of his best work. Obviously, the finale is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely incredible. And maybe the most Doctor-ish end of his life, end of an incarnation. I think this is the most fundamentally understanding story of who the Doctor is, what he stands for, what he does and why. I think Doctor Who honestly peaked with this two-parter, and I don't know if it will ever reach that high again. People moan about Twice Upon a Time. I understand why. But considering that Moffat was kind of stuck in a corner in that, you know, he had to write this or give up the Christmas slot, I'm glad that he did write this. And I also think it's a really beautiful and moving epilogue to the Capaldi era as a whole. If you look at it like The Doctor Falls was Capaldi's last stand, and Twice Upon a Time is the final... It's the epilogue of his book. It's the final few pages of his life. I think it works beautifully like that. Yeah, just a great, great season. Admittedly, I think Eaters of Light is rough, but when you overlook that episode, just what a fucking generational run of Doctor Who. Which brings me into my hot take, which is that I like the Monk trilogy. I'm sorry, I just do. Extremis is very obviously the peak of the Monk trilogy, but The Pyramid at the End of the World is a really interesting sort of pseudo-sequel to the Zygon stories. You get to see more of the modern sort of political landscape that's been created because of... You know, the Moffat world building wasn't maybe as bad as we once thought. At least in the Capaldi era, the world building is quite strong, and The Pyramid at the End of the World is sort of the last big look that we get at that. And Lie of the Land, I don't know, I enjoy it. I don't really have a reason for it. I just think it's all right. Missy gets that really cool scene in the vault. I love Missy. Missy best master. Moving on to Series 11, which I'm going to actually put in the B tier. I like Series 11 a lot. I get super confused when people say this is Whittaker's weakest season because I think it's very obviously her best. fine. You don't have many recurring elements in this series, but I think this series honestly proved that works. Like, sure, you get a Dalek in Resolution, which is a very competent story. Maybe the most menacing the Daleks have been since Series 4. But as for the rest of the series, and the non-returning elements, I think it works really well. I think this was a bold, fresh reinvention of the show. It's got its own sort of newfound cinematic quality. It's got it feels like it's for a whole new audience, which is, what Doctor Who needed at the time. I think that the characters are refreshing. The TARDIS exterior is refreshing. It looks new, but it's harkening back to the old TARDIS. And yeah, I don't know. I think it just evokes that sort of classic Who feeling a lot more than any of the other modern seasons have done. Jodie Whittaker, I think, is actually quite good in this series. I know she unfortunately was written to not be a woman Doctor, which was definitely a problem with this series, is that it didn't accommodate for the fact that the Doctor was a woman. Especially because you could have done so much interesting stuff with that. Have an inverse dynamic, have a woman Doctor and a male companion. Go back to the past and have the Doctor deal with being accused of being a witch, or, have sexism happen to her and, put people in their place or whatever. The companions are also a little bit lackluster. Graham is by far, obviously, the best of the bunch, but it would have been nice to have some better character development and just general character insight for Yaz, and especially Ryan, who just feels like an exposition box. You can just press a button and he'll say what's going on.
That spider in Anna's flat was way bigger than a normal household spider.
I also like that the show went back to a more historical route and was leaning into the sort of pure historical nature of the 60s Doctor Who. I think they should have maybe committed a little bit more to the bit, because Space Racist wasn't exactly the best villain for Rosa. The alien element of Demons of the Punjab was just unneeded completely. But that aside, I like that the show wants to do historical stuff again, especially with Demons of the Punjab and The Witchfinders, which I think they're at least two of the strongest episodes of the season. The strongest for me being It Takes You Away, which I genuinely think is one of the best pieces of Doctor Who media we've had since 2017. I love It Takes You Away, and I think I always will. As for a hot take, I like the Saranga conundrum. I really do. It's alien, but the alien doesn't want to eat everyone. It wants to eat the ship. I don't know. That's really fun and cute, and it's... Do you know what? That sums up the whole season for me. There are definitely weak links. The Battle of Ranskorav Kolos, Arachnids in the UK, the Ghost Monument, fine. They're weak links. But you know what? This whole season I just think is cute and fresh and enjoyable. And it's easily the highlight of the Whittaker era for me. Okay. Moving on to Series 12, which I'm going to have to put this as our first member of the D tier. I don't like it. This is a hot take in and of itself, but I really don't see the appeal for this season. This has the lowest bracket of episodes that I like so far. I can probably name like 3 episodes in this whole season that I think are like good. Other than that, it's all stuff I don't like, which is a real shame. I think it's really weighed down by dismissing Series 11's remit. This was like a fresh reinvention for the show. We don't need to bring old things back because we can do new things. We want to tell new stories, but no, we're going to bring back the Master. We're going to remake the Rachnos. We're going to bring back the Jadoon. We're going to bring back the Cybermen. We're going to bring back Gallifrey and destroy it again. And I don't know, it's just dull and repetitive in my eyes. The arc of losing Gallifrey and finding it again over those first 7 seasons was beautiful and made the character so compelling. And I know that the show struggled with the aftermath of that and sort of giving the Doctor purpose after that. But taking away Gallifrey again wasn't the solution. That wasn't the answer. It's derivative and pointless because it doesn't even give the Doctor an arc. She just sulks every now and then and people are like, what's wrong with you? And the Doctor's like, no, what's wrong with me? I'm fine. And then everyone's like, no, you're not fine. What's wrong? And then the plot happens and we forget all about it and nothing is learned at the end of the series. It's just... it's lazy and annoying, and I think I don't mean to be rude to Chibnall, but those are the words that I'd use. I also think that the Doctor starts acting incredibly out of character in this series. I need not explain myself because you can see the clip on screen. Yeah, I don't know. I really am not a fan of Series 12. Hot take as well, just to, rub it in a little bit more. I don't like Fugitive of the Jadoon. I couldn't care that Jack appears to just be like, hey guys, this is what's going to happen in the finale. I don't care for the return of the Jadoon. They barely matter in this. It's just, let's have 5 minutes of doing Smith and Jones again and then move on to another secret Doctor that doesn't fit anywhere else. And even now we know about the Timeless Child, it still doesn't fit anywhere. Why is... Before I go on ranting about it, I'm just gonna not. Yeah, I don't like Fugitive of the Jadoon. Sorry, I think it's a poor episode in a poor season. Moving on to Flux and the associated 2022 specials. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go D tier again. I just think it's a forgettable and messy season of Doctor Who. There aren't really any standout episodes to me. You think of a season of Doctor... Like, I think of, season 12, right? I think of Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. I think of season 11, I think of It Takes You Away, The Saranga Conundrum, Demons of the Punjab. Any season of Doctor Who, I can pinpoint episodes, and I can see them in my head, and I can probably quote them. I don't have that with Flux. I really don't. War of the Sontarans, I remember, and that's probably my favourite episode of this season, and all I can remember it for is a Sontaran on a horse. I don't really remember the story. I remember flashes, and that's kind of it. But this is the problem with this season being serialised. I think it was good to experiment with that. I don't think that format quite works, especially with a show that's built its name from travelling all over time and space, having so many different adventures, having loads of different writers that can come in and put their own spin on the show for an hour every week. I think Flux just kind of misses the mark with that. I think it's also annoying that this season couldn't just be 13 and Yaz. Yaz desperately needed some character growth, and this season could have been the season for that. But they spend too much time trying to establish fucking John Bishop.
What's the point of being alive?
They've just grown closer off screen together, and it's like, well, alright. And don't even get me started on the forced romance. I don't like it when the Doctor's romantic. I don't like 10 and Rose, or 10 and Madame de Pompadour, or 11 and Clara, and especially not 13 and Yaz. Although I love the Doctor and River together. Those guys have my heart. Chibnall manages to sort of undo a mistake he did in my eyes with season 12, in that the villains that he does bring back this season, he does handle quite well. I think the Sontarans developed quite a reputation for being a joke in the Moffat era of the show, and Chibnall sort of tries to restore them, minus the whole chocolate scene. And I think for the most part the Weeping Angels are used well, although I kind of don't like that they're part of Division. I think the more the writers make the Weeping Angels, the less impactful they become. And yeah, I think for the most part there's some really poor world building in this season as well. It's not even until another showrunner comes in and says the Flux destroyed half the universe that it destroyed half the universe. You end Flux and it's like, is the solar system still there? Does the universe still exist? Did the Flux kill everything? Did it all get reversed? What the fuck happened? And yeah, I'm not a big fan of the specials. Hot take. Hate Eve of the Daleks. Hate is a strong word, but I hate it. Don't want it. Don't want to see it. Power of the Doctor is fun though. As a BBC centenary special, it's fabulous. As a regeneration story, it's the messiest thing ever. On to Series 14, or Season 1, whatever you want to call it. And I'm also going to rope in the 60th specials. My list, my rules. Starting off with the 60th specials, yeah, I spoke a bit earlier. I do think that it ruins Journey's End a little bit, taking away from Donna's fate for the sake of 3 episodes. I don't know if that was worth it. I really don't. But Tennant is fantastic as 14. Again, Wild Blue Yonder is a great episode. The Giggle is pretty good. Although bi-generation has fucking ruined the show. No, I'm kidding, kind of. I think at the time it was a really good idea, especially with the little that we were given. The little that we knew about it. I think the idea was kind of that bi-generation was going to heal the Doctor, and you could have Tennant sort of retire and deal with everything that the character had been through up to that point. Mavic Chen, the Time War, the Pandorica, the Timeless Child. And then Ncuti could go off on his own adventures and be a fresh, carefree version of the character, more akin to the dashing, dazzling hero that we knew in the classic series. But that ultimately didn't pan out because Ncuti was given a very difficult character to describe. He wasn't quite this reformed, healed character that he was supposed to be. Instead, he still carried a lot of that repressed emotion that's been with the character since 2005. He still has a lot of trauma and weight on his shoulders that comes out in episodes like Rogue and even going further down the line, the Interstellar Song Contest. And generally, they just kind of feel like they're not the Doctor in a lot of ways. I've spoken about this at length before. Go look at the channel to hear more about that sort of stuff. Ruby is another culprit of this. I don't think that she's characterized particularly well. I couldn't really tell you much about Ruby as a person other than she has a fear of being abandoned. Her arc, which runs at the center of this season, is kind of undercooked. It ends in Empire of Death, which is maybe the most underwhelming finale in Doctor Who. It's definitely up there with another one, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of potential with this season that I feel wasn't realised, mostly through the characters. From an episode-to-episode basis, it's fine. It's kind of a middling season. There's some really good stuff in there. I think The Devil's Chord is wonderfully experimental. Boom is exceptionally well-paced, even with its flaws. And I think Dot and Bubble is still fantastic. It's basically Doctor Who does Black Mirror, which I'm sure has been pointed out before. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't mesh with this season as much as I maybe want to. So ultimately, I'm going to put season 1 and the 60th specials in the C tier. There was a lot of promise, but it just didn't quite live up to it. As for a hot take, I'm not the biggest fan of Rogue. I know it's kind of funny because my previous hot takes have mostly been, I like this episode where the characters are just running around and there's a silly monster and a silly sci-fi twist. Because that's basically what Rogue is, but I don't know. This one just wasn't for me. Nothing more to say, really. Finally, we're covering Season 2, or Series 15, which I'm going to put in F tier. I'm sorry. I'll give you my hot take at the start. I don't like this season at all. This is my least favourite season of Doctor Who. There is only one episode that I actually like in this season, so I think that alone sort of explains my stance. If you're curious, it's The Well. I think there was hope with the 15th Doctor and Belinda at the start of the season. I wasn't 100% happy with how it was written, but the idea that 15 had this sort of darker undertone and maybe wasn't as reformed and rejuvenated as we originally thought, I thought that was an interesting idea. And then, you know, with Belinda, she was more oppositional to the Doctor, more confrontational, you know, akin to the better companions in the past, something that the show had been lacking for a while. I thought that might carry us through a bit more, you know, if it was better written further on. And then it kind of went nowhere, to the point that Belinda didn't even have an arc. Belinda just got retconned at the end of the season. Literally, her whole character changed. But even then, for most of the series, it was just 15 and Ruby again. When you've got Belinda, who's criticising almost everything the Doctor does in episode 1, and then by episode 6, she's calling him wonderful immediately after she watches him torture a man, which I'm not going to get angry over. I could go on a long rant about this and I think the really harmful politics of this season. I don't know. I think there's some really harmful rhetoric and some really harmful character assassination in this season that drags it even further down for me. while I am mature enough to engage with media that doesn't share my political views, I think this season is a blatant misrepresentation of what Doctor Who should be and what Doctor Who should stand for, and I think that's quite damaging. I think this also maybe has the worst finale. Yeah, I think I said that about season 1, but the reality war is just abhorrently poor. And I think it kills me inside knowing that this is like the first ever surprise regeneration and it was in this story. And it's like a monkey's paw. It's like, yeah, you've got a surprise regeneration, but it's in what may be the worst Doctor Who story of all time.
What the fuck was that?
I know that's like an objective framing. I should say it's maybe my least favourite Doctor Who story of all time. I just really do not like this season. I'm sorry. I don't want to be a hater, as some people have said. I didn't go into this wanting to hate it. I hope you can tell. It's not like I've just been hating on Doctor Who for years now. It's not like I think I've outgrown it, because, you know, I'm a bit childish at heart. I love Doctor Who. I always will love Doctor Who. It means so much to me because it's made me want to be a filmmaker, you know, because it was such a big part of my childhood and still is part of my life now. It gives me escapism still. But we're going down divergent lines right now, and I hope that we can meet up again and go down the same path again, because it breaks my heart in a way that's really dramatic, but it breaks my heart that I'm so out of tune with Doctor Who right now. But I am, and that's the fact of the matter. So there you go, F tier. And that's it. Every Doctor Who season ranked on the tier list. What do you guys think about this ranking? What are your thoughts on the Doctor Who seasons? Where would you rank them? Best to worst, worst to best, whatever. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I have been your host, Mr. Greaves. I'm going to go take a nap because that was a lot of talking. And yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely day, evening, night, morning, whatever time it is you're watching this. Take care, everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.